Integrated Networks Chips AI, and the Brain Part 2, number 1571, the 12th of March 2026, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation, Category Science, Engineering, and Neuroscience. Glucose instability, a biological energy imbalance, during periods when glucose levels fluctuate and extreme exhaustion occurs. The body may be experiencing something similar to a biological energy imbalance. The brain normally consumes about 20% of the body's total glucose supply during periods of active neuroplasticity following brain injury. Local energy demand at repair sites can increase substantially. As the brain prioritizes energy for neural repair and network reorganization, systemic glucose regulation may temporarily become less stable. Additional factors may contribute to this effect. Stroke can disrupt autonomic nervous system regulation, which plays a role in glucose homeostasis. Neuroinflammatory processes during recovery may further increase metabolic demand. The result can be systemic fatigue and metabolic instability, reflecting the high biological energy demand associated with neural reconstruction. Comparison of system optimization, semiconductor rerouting, and biological neuroplasticity differ in several fundamental ways. In semiconductor systems, the power supply is external and stable. Electrical energy is continuously delivered from outside the system. In biological systems, the power supply is internal and depends on metabolic processes that convert glucose and oxygen into usable energy. Semiconductor rerouting occurs within pre-existing circuits through logical switching. Neuroplasticity requires structural remodeling of neural networks. The energy cost of semiconductor signal routing is low and relatively constant. In contrast, the energy cost of neuroplasticity can be high and dynamically changing. Electronic systems do not experience fatigue when signals are rerouted. Biological systems often experience exhaustion and metabolic stress during neural recovery. Engineering interpretation of stroke recovery. From an engineering viewpoint, stroke recovery can be interpreted as a system undergoing a large-scale network optimization process under limited energy conditions. The brain attempts to discover new, stable pathways for signal transmission while operating under strict metabolic constraints. In effect, the biological system performs real-time network reconstruction while the power grid, represented by metabolic energy supply, is under heavy demand. This resembles how engineers analyze complex structures using computational tools such as finite element methods to determine stable pathways for stress and energy distribution. In my own case, continuous glucose monitoring provided an additional real-world observation. My diet pattern remained largely unchanged before and after the stroke, although my walking activity decreased during recovery, despite this relatively stable diet pattern. The CGM data shows a gradual upward shift in average glucose levels during the post-stroke period. When these observations are considered together, a reasonable interpretation is that the metabolic demands of neural repair, combined with reduced physical activity, contributed to a modest but persistent increase in systemic glucose load. In other words, neural recovery is not computationally free. The brain's reconstruction process requires real metabolic energy. The exhaustion and glucose instability I experienced may represent the measurable physiological cost of biological computation and neural rebuilding. A unified perspective. From this integrated viewpoint, the relationship among chips, artificial intelligence, and the brain becomes clearer. Chip design builds the hardware. Artificial intelligence develops the algorithms. The brain represents the natural system that inspired both. All three domains are ultimately studying the same fundamental question: how complex networks process information, distribute energy, maintain stability, and adapt over time. Key takeaway for the reader: semiconductor rerouting is logical switching, while neural rerouting of human brain is physical reconstruction. Recovery from a neurological event is not merely a mental or psychological effort. It is a combined mechanical, biophysical, and biochemical reconstruction process occurring inside the brain. The exhaustion commonly experienced by stroke survivors is not simply fatigue in the ordinary sense. It is the physiological manifestation of the brain's large-scale rebuilding process, during which neural circuits are reorganized and new septic pathways are formed to restore lost functions. Figure illustration. The attached figure presents a conceptual comparison among the complex information systems, microchips, artificial intelligence systems, and the human brain. The illustration highlights the structural and functional similarities shared by these domains. From a systems engineering perspective, The diagram is organized into 3 parallel layers. Microchips artificial intelligence human brain. Each layer contains 3 core components, forming a balanced 3x3 structure that allows readers to easily understand the relationships among the 3 systems. Microchip circuits, logic gates, energy constraints, artificial intelligence, neural networks, algorithm, and compute limits, human brain or synapse constraints. Although these systems belong to different scientific fields, they share a common organizational pattern in silicon hardware. Circuits act as information pathways, and logic gates perform computation, while the system is constrained by electrical power and heat dissipation. In artificial intelligence, neural networks provide the structural framework, algorithms govern signal processing, and performance is limited by data availability and computational resources. In the biological brain, neurons serve as the fundamental processing units. Synapses transmit and modify signals, and neural activity is constrained by metabolic factors such as oxygen and glucose supply. Across all 3 systems, the same fundamental principle appears: structure greater than signal processing greater than energy limitation. This observation reflects a deeper scientific truth. Information systems always require both a physical substrate and energy. In microchips, information is stored in the electrical states of transistors. In artificial intelligence models, information is encoded in network parameters. In the human brain, information is stored in synaptic strength and connectivity. Therefore, information is physical. This framework also helps explain post-stroke neuroplasticity. In electronic systems, circuit damage interrupts signal pathways and requires rerouting. In artificial intelligence systems, retraining reorganizes network parameters. In the brain, stroke damages neural pathways, but surviving neurons can gradually form new synaptic connections through neuroplasticity. However, an important difference exists. Chips operate through electricity, AI systems through digital computation, and the biological brain through electrochemical signaling and metabolic processes. During stroke recovery, the brain must physically rebuild neural connections, which explains the significant fatigue commonly experienced during neuroplastic recovery. Conclusion: this research highlights an important principle that appears repeatedly across engineering, computing, and neuroscience. Information is physical. Whether information is stored in a flip-flop within a semiconductor chip or in a septic button within the hippocampus, it always requires a physical substrate and an associated energy cost to exist, move, and be processed. In this paper, I have described a unified perspective on complex networks that connect semiconductor systems, artificial intelligence, and biological neural systems. This perspective is intended for readers who are interested in examining these domains from a systems viewpoint. The analysis presented here reflects a unique vantage point. It comes from someone who once designed computational tools used to build semiconductor chips based on artificial intelligence algorithms and who is now applying similar analytical thinking to understand a personal biomedical event, namely the process of stroke recovery and neural reorganization. This paper's conclusion that information is physical and always requires energy to exist and move is an important unifying statement. It ties together the entire paper and reinforces my central theme: chips, AI, and the brain are all physical systems solving similar problems in different materials. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.